two calls that we've had, two webinars we've had, meeting norms are, please, if you've got any questions or comment, I can't see you, so just don't feel like you're interrupting. Just blurt out, and we'll take our time going through it. We're going to talk first about managing your own performance, several slides on that, and then several more slides on coaching, and then we'll have some follow-ups, including the preparation for the June 12th meeting. I know that when I was doing a final review after I'd sent these to everybody, I put June 8th on there, so it's June 12th. So let's jump in. And I always like to, I do these sort of webinars on coaching quite frequently, and I like to start out with it from the perspective of the people on the call with your boss or your manager, because I think it's good to see it from that angle before we jump into how can you translate that and use some of those things from that angle with the people that you are coaching. And I don't know that many of you, but as practice managers, I know that you have responsibility for a certain number of consultants out there in the field, and that hopefully you get some good things out of this in terms of how do you coach somebody and get the best out of them. So manage your own performance. I mean, some of this sounds fairly common sense. Most of it hopefully sounds common sense, but you know, think about it. Is your role clearly defined, documented with the description or goals? Are you and your team and your boss in sync on the specifics of your role? Sounds, again, very, very common sense and straightforward, but it never ceases to amaze me in my travels where if you sit two people down, one is the subordinate, the other is the manager, and you ask them separately, what is my role? You might get two different answers. So are you clear on what your boss is expecting from you? If you're not, it's just an accident waiting to happen or issues waiting to happen. Are you clear on what your team is expecting from you? And again, that's going the other way. Is it clear what your boss is expecting from you? And in turn, if you're the boss of a group of folks, is it clear what they're expecting from you? If not, work on that. One of the things I didn't include here, but I use fairly frequently, I use this both in lieu of a HR description in smaller companies, or I use it just when two people need to get in sync on expectations, and I call it key results. Key results, key activities, and critical factors for success. So if you were to sit down with people on your team and say, over the next 30 days, or if in 3 months, we're sitting together and I said that you couldn't have done a better job, what are the 4 or 5 things that you accomplished? And it's actually interesting sometimes to ask a teammate to do that, and then you do that, and then do them both independently, then sync up. Are the expectations as to what you were expecting in sync with the expectations that your subordinate or teammate are expecting? Hey, and if the answer to end, I'm sorry, somebody say something?
Yeah, sorry, I just had a real quick question on, I believe it's number 1. What if you ask your manager, what if you ask your manager to have a documented description of your goal and they say no? What do you do?
Well, you know, what I would do is I probe as to why. I mean, that's just it feels like a mismatch. Now, believe me, I'm not I used to work in very large companies, which probably many of you have, and I'm not a big proponent of, you know, 3-page job descriptions. That's why I like things like key results and critical factors for success. So if my manager said no, I would try to understand why. And then I would try to make it easy on he or she by saying, well, how about if I write down things that I think are being expected of me, or the things that I think I'm supposed to accomplish over the next month, 2 months, 3 months, and run it by you. And ideally, maybe you do the same thing. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question very clearly, but boy, I'd find it hard. Say it again, please.
Oh, no, it's great, because I actually encountered this once where he just didn't want to bother to write it down. So, and eventually later we did have problems with it. So yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a problem waiting to happen, isn't it? I mean, if you're guessing what your immediate manager is expecting from you, or the results that he or she is expecting, there just leaves so much room for mismanagement, so much room for performance issues, all those sort of things.
Well, and Tom, I would say I like that your answer of having them sort of define it, because I think the one thing that I've learned through just reading through the information that you sent is that I just assume that people know what they're supposed to do, and if they need help, they're going to ask me. And so through just reading everything that you sent, I realized that I have to look for coaching opportunities, and I know I don't do that. So it's been really helpful.
Well, I love that. I mean, you're absolutely right. So and that's so common. It's so common that you just, sometimes we just expect, either as a boss or a subordinate, just wind us up and let us go, and be fairly vague as to what's expected. And those are just accidents waiting to happen. So I couldn't agree more. Thank you, both. Yeah. So, of course, if the answer to any of the previous four is less than 100%, you leave yourself vulnerable for all the things we just said. Vulnerable to not meeting what your boss is expecting from you. Vulnerable to your subordinate not, understanding what you expect of them. And heck, even vulnerable in terms of job performance and, ratings and all those sort of things. So, simplest way to gain clarity: ongoing two-way communication. And when I say you need to do this, I'm saying that actually from both perspectives. I know people on the call are practice managers and therefore have people that you're responsible for. So you need to own this, but I think it's also important for the subordinate to own it. So I probably ought to change this slide to say you both need to own it. Don't wait for a mismatch to happen. Just get in sync. And it's not that difficult. It's just good two-way communication. Managing your own performance around accountability, and we talked either the first or second call around accountability, but from you, the boss, from your perspective, does your team hold you accountable? And do you let them? And I can think of many examples of this. And the giving them permission, we talked the last webinar we did around feedback, giving your teammates and your team permission to hold you accountable can be everything from a simple, hey, if I give you instructions on something, my job is fast-paced, and sometimes I might give instructions that contradict something I asked you to do a couple of weeks ago. If you feel that way at all, please let me know. That's just a great example of, in any scenario, give your people a permission to hold you accountable. That's an easy one, because in the heat of the battle, we can oftentimes forget what we asked them to do. But also, if you're not doing, as the manager and the boss, if you're not doing something you're asking the other people to do, give people permission to call you out, gently, in a productive way. Are you easy to hold accountable by your boss or your team? That obviously goes with number one, giving them permission. But I suppose the best way to find out on either one of those, are you easy to hold accountable by your boss, is ask he or she. And that's just another way to seek permission or give them permission. Do you think as my immediate manager that I'm holding myself accountable? If there's any areas where you think I'm not, let's talk about it, because I want to be an accountable person. Same thing with your subordinate. Number three, does your boss do a good job holding you accountable? And many times, no. Again, I'm not talking specifics about people on the phone, but oftentimes, you forget to even define what it is that you're asking them to do. I'm not sure that the woman that made that comment, who was the person that talked about you sometimes forget to do coaching and tell people what you're expecting of them.
That was me, Karen.
Oh, Karen, thank you. So can you see where if you're forgetting to do that or not even necessarily thinking that it's something you need to do, where it might be hard for you to hold someone accountable because there's a mismatch between what you're expecting them to do versus what they think they're expected to do.
Of course, because I'm just assuming that they know what they're supposed to be doing. And then when
Yes,
they don't, and I'm disappointed, then it's, like I said, that's one of the things I just learned going through everything, that I just assume people know what they need to do. And when they don't do it and I get frustrated, it's both of our faults in a way, because I haven't taken accountability.
Because on the subordinate, it's guesswork on their part, and on your
Right.
on your part, it's just thinking through, the aha moment, saying, wow, it's not that difficult, just to let them know, what I'm expecting and make sure we're on the same page. It just saves all kinds of frustration or headaches down the road.
Right.
And we used a lot of seek permission and give permission the last call when we talked about the art of giving and receiving feedback. And it's a real tried and true process. I read a book many years ago called Make the Noise Go Away. And the concept is simple, but the noise is whatever is in your boss's mind about you or on your mind about your subordinate. That feels like I wonder if they are paying attention, taking care of something. Before I read the book, they came up with the term the noise, I always thought about it as my worry box. And everybody probably knows what their worry box is, but it's the things that hopefully aren't keeping you up at night, but sometimes they do. But the things that are front and center in your brain saying, I wonder if he or she's doing that. I'm concerned because I haven't heard anything on this. So that is the noise. And the more that you understand your boss's noise and your team understands your noise, the better position we're in to manage it and reduce it. Make the Noise Go Away is it's a great book, and I'll just spend 2 minutes on it. It's about a owner of I think a factory. I read it 10 years ago. A factory, that they're not doing terrifically well financially. The boss, his personal family life is totally out of whack with his business life. He's spending 7 days a week. You guys get the picture. He brings in a COO, a second in command, and roll the camera forward. 2 years later, the company is doing terrific. The owner has good balance between his work life and his family life. And he's just feeling great. So they decide to go on a quick retreat for a couple days, and the rest of the book is, what did we do? Let's talk about it. What did we do to get to where we are today? And then the whole book gets into the noise, and the COO had done a terrific job of seeking to understand simply by asking questions and probing. What is what is in the owner's worry box, or what is his noise? And sometimes it's the subordinate seeking to understand it, and in many cases it's the boss explaining it to somebody. I'm worried about this particular aspect of this project. Instead of me seeking you out to ask if it's okay, would you just give me a heads up once a week? That's a great example. So don't make your boss come looking for you to help with their noise. Go looking for him or her and manage it. Condition your team to do the same with you. And I'll just send, you don't need to ask me, I'll just send, when I read a book, I usually spend time afterwards writing up a 2 or 3 page overview because I like to go back and look at these, and I also like to use them in my consulting business. So I can't talk, write, and think at the same time. So send Make Noise Go Away to STG practice managers. You guys know, I think from the last couple of sessions, that I'm a collector of quotes I trust everybody knows who John Wooden was, but we're all imperfect. We all have needs. The weak usually do not ask for help, so they stay weak. That just, when I read that many years ago, I've actually read a couple of John Wooden books, even though he, gosh, I think he died at 100 years old, 8 or 10 years ago. But if anybody wants to read, particularly if you've got any liking of basketball or sports, even though it really is more about life than it is about basketball. He's got a couple of books that are just chock full of very important, and I can't think of the right word, but things that will resonate about what a great leaders do, and they practice the fundamentals and all those sort of things. Anybody in the call ever read anything on John Wooden?
Not that I can remember, no.
And again, doesn't mean you should go out and buy his book, but even if you Google quotes by John Wooden, you'll see 8 or 10 of them that are just gems. And again, they really have little to do with college basketball. For those of you who don't know, he's probably the winningest or the best college basketball coach of all time. He won 10 or 12 championships with UCLA in the 60s and 70s. But ask for help. I think it's a sign of vulnerability. We've talked about the power of being vulnerable. We've talked about self-improvement commitments. But many people, and frankly, all too many people, are afraid or not comfortable to ask for help. The very first call that we did 2 months back, we talked about one of the essentials of good leadership is make them comfortable asking for help. So give them permission. There are a lot of people that say, if I ever ask my boss for help, he or she will think I'm stupid. He or she will think I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe my job will be in jeopardy. So give them a comfort level to come and ask for help. And you, in turn, be comfortable going and asking your boss for help. And it's not, hey, this is a problem, what do I do? This is a situation I'm having. I'm thinking about doing this, but I could use some advice from you. Get comfortable doing that, and get comfortable and give your subordinates permission to do that. It fosters a culture where all are comfortable seeking help with simple rules. And making it safe for anyone, it's really not a sign of weakness, although many people, hopefully not many on this call, but many people feel weak when they ask for help. And I do, and I work pretty hard to to ask for help, whether it's asking for help when I was in the business, whether it's seeking a little help from my spouse or even from my children. It is not a sign of weakness. In fact, it's a sign of strength to say, I don't know how to do something. I could use your help. And no dumping. That also comes from that leadership stuff that we reviewed a couple of calls ago. Don't let someone come to you and say, I've got this problem, what do I do? Because they might be just real sincere. On the other hand, if you solve their problems for them, then you become their crutch, and they're just going to come to you with problem after problem after problem. So condition them in a very productive way, saying, Tom, I always want you to feel comfortable coming and asking for help, but it's really important for both of our progress for you to come and say, I need this help. This is kind of what I'm thinking of doing, or this is where I'm stuck, and this is what I'm thinking. Again, as a leader, it gives you the opportunity how quickly they're learning. It gives you the opportunity to get a feel for their situational judgment. And from their perspective, if they're spot on with what they're thinking of doing, and you're just reinforcing and saying, great, they feel like $1 million. So really important. Have the courage to say, I don't know, or I need help to anyone, and be willing to put in the effort as help is offered. Again, that is the sign of vulnerability. I don't know. I need help. Your idea is better than mine. I don't know the answer. Those are all terrific signs. And there, I think every session we've had so far, we've just kind of walked it through the quick filter of wants it, gets it, and does it. So the wants it is the desire to accomplish something like be a good leader, be proud of what I've accomplished, make a lot of money, gets it, do I have the tools and the training to improve? So in this context, if what you want is to be better at managing your own performance, getting better at managing your team's performance, getting better at coaching, those are all great reasons to be spending time on this. The gets it is stuff we're talking about today, and then any follow-up you're going to do. And then, of course, the does it is making the time, not having the time, because time is finite, making the time to practice and to work on it. And that's almost always the hardest step. So let's turn the table around here for a second. I sent you folks a week or two ago 4 pretty easy to read, pretty short coaching articles. You guys probably know, because I've said it in the past, you know, I give myself the proverbial 10 minutes a day or 1 hour a week. I'm in the coaching and consulting business, so some weeks I do a lot more than that, but I probably have, you know, 20 or 30 really good articles on coaching. I just picked out 4 fairly quickly that I thought would resonate with you folks. So what does? Anybody want to start off with any of these? Using positive reinforcement in employee motivation. And I hope and trust that everybody took, you know, 20 minutes to read these articles. But anybody on that first one, using positive reinforcement in employee motivation, anybody have anything in that short 2-page article that resonated with them? I guess it was a 3-page article.
Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, please.
I was reminded the other day that you have to go out of your way to give positive reinforcement. And Crystal, you reminded me of a term that you and I talked about, Tom, and that's don't do the feedback sandwich.
Right.
Don't be the only time you give positive reinforcement when you're about to give somebody bad news as well. So don't do a feedback sandwich. So.
Yeah, I love that, because if the only time you tell someone that they've done well is a precursor to, you know, coming out with things they're not doing well, then yeah, that's not the right time to do it. You're absolutely right. Who on the call feels good that they do a good job of recognizing when people do something good and giving them a quick compliment?
I mean, I think I do. I think the thing that's difficult, and so the first article for me, if I had everybody in the office and I saw them every single day, or I was interacting with them every single day on their projects, I think it would be easier for me. So my favorite was number 3, overcoming. That was the one that just resonated with me and just like sort of was my aha article that I read. But with the first one, I was thinking, how do you do that when you don't see everybody every day or you don't interact with them every day? How do you reinforce them positively when you're not with them every single day, watching what they're doing or interacting with them?
Well, you know, it certainly means you've got to spend a little more time going out of your way to try to find something they've done well, or maybe even just checking in with them. Yeah, I know you guys have you know, teammates all over the place, but even checking in once a week and just say, how's everything going? You know, if your perception is that someone's been working hard, how's everything going? Gosh, it feels like you're working pretty hard. Everything going okay? That's just a little, feels like you're working hard. That's a sign of recognition. Now, hopefully they are, but as their manager, you know, I would assume for the most part, you know how they're doing on the job.
And well, a lot of that comes back through their account managers, and I thought about that, but then I don't want them to feel like they're being babysat, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But probably some of the best will come back from their account managers, because the account managers also interact with the clients. So,
well, that's a good point. You know, maybe it's checking in periodically and saying, hey, how's everything going? Is there anything you need from me? Anything I can do to help? And just get a quick conversation going, and then you won't always, you know, find something from that you can compliment them on. But you know, I just think that sometimes even reaching out to people just with that quick, hey, how's it going? Is there anything that you need from me? Can be positive.
okay.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments? Anything that resonates?
This is Matt.
Yeah, Matt, thanks.
This is Matt here. I think it was on the second one where it says how great coaches ask, listen, and emphasize. I think
Yes.
it's important. I thought the important point was making yourself more available to them than what you realize. I think in the article they said the guy who's asking help, he asked the guy, when are you available? It's the only time I'm not available is Wednesday mornings. For the rest of the time, I'm freely available. And I think, I think we all have busy schedules, but we need to make ourselves a little bit more available than what other people can perceive.
Yeah, good one, good one. And I'm just a big fan of that particular article. Ask and then listen. One of these articles, talked about I'm not sure if they use the word active listening, but I was talking with a CEO in a company out in California recently, who's very well intentioned and very hardworking. But he got some feedback from some of his subordinates that when we have our one-on-one, you spend a lot of that one-on-one checking your email, and it just feels like you're not listening. So the active listening would be, if you're on the phone, you can't use good eye contact, but active listening would be responding to what someone says by making comments that make it very clear that you understood very well what they said. So asking, listening, empathizing. Anybody else?
So one thing, this is Troy. One thing that I got from it was when you're coaching somebody, try to make it so that they come up with a solution on their own. Kind of help them find the solution themselves rather than just telling them what to do. Kind of help them come up with it on their own. I guess it kind of goes back to the Dale Carnegie book. If you make it their idea, they're much more likely to take it and run with it and accept it if it's their idea and they came up with it themselves. I think that kind of was interesting to me.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. In fact, I had a coach many years ago who we were talking about problem solving, and it very much occurred to me that through this coach kind of pulling out of me that my way of solving problems was just, particularly with my team, my subordinates, was essentially or figuratively just push everybody out of the way and solve the problem for them. And that doesn't do any good. So in fact, it's actually a compliment in many ways when you ask someone, what do you think? And of course, the best way is, to make them come up with a solution. Just keep on asking them questions. Hey, yeah, that's a great idea. So yeah, a great way to think about it. Because would everybody agree that in the heat of the battle, we've all got very busy jobs, that when a problem comes up, the most expeditious way to deal with it a lot of times is just solve it yourself. Asking questions, even though it's a little bit more time consuming, conditioning people to think. And then, to the point on Dale Carnegie that Troy just made, there's a lot of power in them saying, well, that was my idea. Takes a little more time, but it works on several things at the same time. It works on your delegation ability. It works on your positive reinforcement. It works on your judgment in a situation as a leader if someone comes up with something reasonably good. And it makes that person feel like $1 million because they feel like it's their idea. So great. Anything else? You guys have heard me say in the past, I know you've all got busy jobs, but if on any of these subjects we've covered in the past, in these 3 sessions and the next one we've got, if you're giving yourself a little bit of time here and there, just use the power of Google. What do great coaches do? Or a lot of these articles I've gotten from the HBR Daily Alert, Harvard Business Review Daily Alert, which I think I mentioned to you folks on the first call. And I simply, just use them over and over again. So let's talk a bit in the remaining half hour about coaching others for great performance. And I hope everybody, it resonates with everybody. You can't be a great manager if you're not a good coach. And gosh, I don't want to just read all these slides, but you know, the single most important managerial competency that separates highly effective managers from average ones is coaching. And you know, you think about it, whether any of a lot of times people think of coaches as coaches of sports teams, but if any of you have children and you know, they're taking dance or they're taking music lessons or they're taking, you know, anything. Great coaches just have the knack of getting the best out of people. They have the knack of, if someone's holding themselves open to be coached, to making them better. Great coaches are quick to compliment, as we've said, quick to recognize, but they're also quick to let someone know when they've got to do something better. I think that first article that we had, let me just flip to it. Deborah Bright, How to Deliver Criticism So Employees Pay Attention. And you know, for those of you who read it, which I assume is all of you, she talks about in her college days being one of the top 10 women divers in the United States. And she practiced every day for 4 to 6 hours, but also because I had an extremely tough coach who routinely offered both caring support and sharp criticism. Early in our relationship, he explained how it would work. When I stop yelling is when you better start to worry. Now, I'm not the type of a coach that's going to spend a lot of time yelling, but great coaches know what makes a coachee respond. And sometimes it's being, you know, it's yelling, as in this example. Sometimes it's just a lot of TLC, tender loving care. But great coaches customize their coaching based on their perception or their expertise and how can I draw the best out of that person. So the most important thing that all of you folks can do each day is to help your team members experience progress at meaningful work. And I know most of you, as Karen said, probably have your teammates are out in the field. So you can interpret this any way you want. And it's not like most of you have people sitting next to you, teammates sitting next to you all day. But interpret this in a way that fits you and your situation. But number 3 is really what I just said earlier. You must understand what drives each person. And some of that is building connections. Some of that is just getting to know the person. Some of that is just trial and error. You know, what works best with this person? And frankly, sometimes it's just asking, how do you like to get feedback and how do you like to be coached? And if someone says, when I make a mistake, you know, hit me with both barrels. I just need to, deal with it that way. Other ones would say, you know, I want to be dealt with this way. And as long as it's a workable situation, customize your coaching with what the coachee is going to respond best to. But of course, the timely feedback is imperative. And if you're an effective coach, you're helping someone learn and grow daily. 70 to 80% of employee learning and development happens on the job, not through formal training programs. I think there's basically what that says to me is something that I have known for a long time is training and coaching are two very different things. Training is, I think of training as a classroom or reading a book or something like that. Coaching is on the job. It's on the job coaching. It's you know, being available to help with problems. You know, if you are at work with some people on your team, it can be kind of coaching by walking around, observing. But it's certainly regular communication around development. What do I need to do to get better? And you know, if you look at the deck that we reviewed on feedback, asking someone permission, understanding someone's motivations, and then seeking their permission to coach them essentially in a way that will be productive for both of you is imperative. Number 6 is really just kind of repeating the same theme. And Karen, to your point, I know the account managers have a lot of interaction with the consultants, particularly as it pertains to how they're doing at the customer. But if you're finding the time periodically, even if it's once a month, to engage in regular coaching conversations, and again, it can be, just think of the right questions to ask. How's everything going? What are the aspects of, where are you running into difficulties where you could use some training? Just think of a series of questions to ask, and use them over and over again, from the perspective of when you're talking with someone as their manager, even if you're only talking to them every few weeks, asking some questions that essentially show that you care, that you're interested, and you're there to help can be very powerful to build strong bonds between you and your team.
Well, and I think that too with we now have with our CDP program, Brian, I think that those opportunities are going to be more prevalent than they maybe were in the past. But no, that's a good point, Tom.
Yeah, and what is that program? What does that stand for?
CDP is Career Development Plans, and so we so we've set those up with pretty much most of our consultants. Some people decided not to participate, but we certainly know who didn't participate, and we can reach out to them on a one-to-one or one individual basis. But I think that just through the CDP process, that through myself or the practice managers and our leads, I think we can reach out to people for coaching.
Well, that's a wonderful mechanism to do it, because I'm assuming the personal development programs really get into what do they need to do better, where do they want to sharpen their skills, and great opportunity for coaching. 1 and 2 here are, we've really already said it, teaching is highly directive. It's showing or telling them what to do, instructing them, and I think that's best in more of a classroom setting or outside of the daily grind. Coaching is highly supportive, and I think we talked about Blanchard's situational leadership, or actually leadership in the 1-minute manager really enforces that. Directive is telling somebody what to do. Supportive is asking them what do they think, and they're two very different things, and you need to be good at both. The power of connections. People who feel connected to others, to their tasks, and to their organization's goals perform at the highest levels. They're loyal, excited to contribute, or even willing to make sacrifices to preserve that sense of attachment. Brian, do all of the consultants understand or know the WIGs? At least the practice WIG?
They sure should.
Or is that something that?
I will say that they don't, because I hear, not reminded regularly. Every once in a while, somebody go, I didn't even know we were doing this. We've announced them in town halls, at company meetings, emails.
So Brian, if I can make an observation as a lead. So I hear about them, I remember them from town hall. Probably we hear about them maybe 3 or 4 times a year, I would say, on my average, or at least I pay attention to hearing them about 3 or 4 times a year. So it gets stale after a while, and I'm reminded not very frequently of them. So let's put it that way.
Yeah, so it's a thank you. Whoever that was, the in sales, it says the proverbial, it takes 7 touches to turn a prospect into a customer. In communication within an organization like yours, it takes 7+ touches or communication. So you just think about how you can do that. My philosophy has always been that if everybody in the company understands reasonably well, not necessarily at a detailed level, but reasonably well, where is the ship going, it helps them feel connected and helps them feel, okay, we have a direction, we have a strategy, we have a set of goals, and because most companies, except even the biggest ones, most companies do not do a particularly good job on that. So it helps build connections when you know where the ship's going, to use that metaphor. For most people, it makes them excited if they feel I can connect my job, I can relate my job to one or more of the goals or the WIGs in the company. One of the
One thing
greatest,
I think that could improve that is making the scoreboards more
Yes.
accessible to the general. I mean, they're over there in the main office, but most of us aren't over in the main office but once or twice a year, you know.
yeah,
So
so
there was-
maybe you make the scoreboards, you know, in the dev center, and maybe you actually send them out periodically to all the consultants, just so they feel kind of in the know and better connected.
Yeah.
Of course, one of the greatest disconnected is fear. People that fear disapproval, criticism, looking stupid. This is just reiterating that whole sense of don't make someone have fear of saying, I don't know what to do, within reason. Whatever the cause, if they're afraid, they underachieve. So make it very clear, again, within reason. You do need to expect that people are average or above average in terms of learning and retention, at least average. But once you've got that confidence, you know, make them comfortable that they can come to you with most any situation and ask for your help. So make it a priority to promote positive connections for employees and rein in the fear.
So before
Really
we move on, may I make another comment?
Would you please? Yeah.
This is Dan. So Brian, I look forward to the practice emails that we get on a quarterly basis. It might be beneficial if we had a general practice email in addition to that that said, here's where we are with our WIGs.
Yep, I think that's a great idea. Just put that checklist item down to me to have a company one sent out, not just a practice one sent out quarterly. So I think it'd be a great idea.
So
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Good, thank you. Yeah, I love number one because I remember once in my life when my family, when I was a young kid, moved, and I was, you know, the new kid in a class after the school year had started. So it's really important with initial onboarding. Remember what it felt like if you were transferred to a new school during the school year. I distinctly remember, I mean, I was that age, I was somewhat introverted, but I distinctly remember the terror, that might not be the right word, but how I felt when I was a new person in, you know, maybe in the fourth grade. I think I was in the fourth grade. That nobody knew me, nobody liked me. You know, I'm scared. I'm the new person. Everybody's got friends, and then, as I recall, it didn't take a whole lot of time before I had my friends and I was being accepted in the classroom. But I use that analogy from the perspective of whenever someone new comes on board. You know, some companies assign them a buddy. Just someone that's been there for a while, and you guys might already do that, Brian, but what does this team do to kind of go out of your way to make a new person, a new consultant, when they come on board, really feel welcome? And you know, whether it's a buddy system, assign them to someone that they can you know, be their buddy to you know, kind of work through the do's and don'ts, or whatever that might be. Just go out of your way to make them feel welcome.
We do have a buddy system program. It's currently titled our mentor program, but that's being rebranded. And then they meet with their practice manager or lead and their account manager as well.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, to put it in more grown-up terms, if you're the only person and you're at some kind of a meeting and you don't have any of your friends with you, and maybe a networking meeting, and you go in and you don't know anybody, unless you're really outgoing, which a lot of people aren't, great people in a networking group like that will recognize you as a newcomer and will actually come over and say, hey, I'm Tom, and shake your hand and just make you feel welcome, and frankly, make you feel like $1 million. So think about how you do that. All of you folks do that as new people come on board. So making it routine to notice, acknowledge your teammates, make the other person feel known, encouraging conversation, regularly express appreciation. Number 5, we already talked about a couple different times. Customized coaching. Assume change is possible, because I do a lot of coaching of one-on-one coaching with leaders. And what I've always said when offering feedback or working with someone, if you cannot state these words, then that person probably should not be there. So Brian, if I was coaching you and you were my subordinate, and you've got some issues, let's say, but if I can't say, Brian, I believe in you, those simple words, then all is lost. If I flat out have given up on you, then coaching is I'm assuming that you can't change, and then coaching is a waste of time. So you have to believe that change is possible, and you have to say, this is reasonably true. I still believe in you, and that's why I want to accelerate my coaching. And those are pretty powerful words. I believe in you, and if someone's really going through a rough patch, I still believe you can do it. I still believe in you. Very, very powerful words. And again, if you can't say that legitimately, then the person probably shouldn't be there because you're wasting your time. I'm not sure if this sounds unfair or not to you folks, but you cannot treat all staff the same way. You need to make some choices. Place some bets on where your efforts will pay off. Particularly if you've got real grave doubts about someone that they're going to make it, and it's hard for you to say, I still believe that person can make it, or it's impossible for you to say that. You need to spend more time maybe moving that person on, and then spend more time on people that you feel that your work will make a difference. And I'm going to work pretty quickly through the rest of these slides so that we can have a couple of minutes at the end. But I love the concept of stars, steadies, and strugglers. So stars are, we often assume, and I see this over and over again, we assume that it's best to leave our stars alone. I feel that's a mistake. In fact, and I do a lot of sales coaching, they say that, in fact, you could equate this to sales, you could equate this to, practice management, that you spend less than 20% of your time on your best performers and more than 60% of your time on your weakest performers, and it should be the other way around. Don't overlook your stars, whether that's coaching them to even better, becoming a better star, or just showing recognition and making them feel appreciated. So actually devote more coaching time to your stars than anyone else, because that's where you'll yield the greatest results. And, they might need more support than you think. So again, I'm a big fan of ask questions, then listen. So if you've got some stars out there that are excellent performers, think about it. Do I have a good relationship with them, or do I just, because I've got such confidence in them, they're kind of out of sight, out of mind? And maybe ask them the question, am I supporting you adequately? Where could I support you better? Praise your stars generally and frequently. Rein them in to avoid burnout. That's a pretty important one. And nudge them to play nicely. That's a fun one. Fun might not be the right word, but sometimes your best people can be a handful. So nudge them to play nicely and show them the value of being a good teammate. By the way, sometimes that can be asking them to help mentor some people. See if that resonates with them, to get to know some people because they're resonating. The steadies, they don't often get top billing. They're basically your proverbial B players, but your B players make up the lion's share of your workforce. If you think of a bell curve, you could say that your stars are 20%, your steadies are 60%, and your strugglers are 20%. But your steadies still need your attention. The first bullet under 3, I struggle with a little bit, because accept them for who they are. And I would say within reason, yes, because not everyone can be an A. But where I struggle with that just a little bit is don't accept them for who they are in the context of never work with them on little areas they can get better. Because I think that everybody can get better. But they may never be an A player. But I think you folks see. Your B players are the core of the team. Recognize, reward them. Like everybody, they crave attention. And give them options. Provide opportunities for them to grow within their comfort zones. I've seen mistakes where, let's say that I, Tom, am a B player, and I do pretty well. But my boss or my coach is going to try to make me an A player. and this really gets me out of my comfort zone. I've seen this happen when someone's been promoted to a team lead, when all they really wanted to do was code, or all they really wanted to do, and then disaster hits because they're just a fish out of water, and they don't really want to do that. So provide opportunities for them to grow within their comfort zone, as long as their comfort zone is acceptable to you and acceptable for what their job is, what the needs of their job are. The strugglers, those are the C, maybe D players that should be performing at a higher level, but they don't. Again, just managers often devote most of their coaching to these folks to the detriment of others. So if someone, and I think the key is, it's in italics, they should be performing at a higher level. That's up to you as the coach or the manager. Should they be doing better? You know, an example of that, if you've got a person that's got expertise in one programming language and you're putting him into something completely different, you know, that might be a struggle. But coaching tips: create a clear plan for improvement. Go back and look at the feedback stuff we did last month. Give candid real-time feedback. Provide a support network. You know, here's who you can go to besides me to lean on. But then, excuse me, know when to give up. And we said in the leadership webinar we did back in March, if today I let someone go and it's a legitimate surprise to them, then shame on me as their manager, their coach, their leader. Everybody deserves to know where they stand at all times, and there should be no surprises. So know when a C player, you're just never going to get them to a B, and you got to give up. And you know, those aren't fun, but for the better of the team, you got to do it. I've seen teams begin to deteriorate because leaders would just never get rid of their C players, and therefore the A players and some of the Bs would say, "I'm just sick and tired of working with these folks that don't, you know, don't really care and aren't contributing," and then they leave and they go into a culture that does. Managing your noise, same concepts as the earlier slides, but in reverse. The more each one of the people on your team understands your noise. So define your noise, and sometimes it's general across your team. Sometimes it's specific to the subordinate or specific to the project that he or she's on. So articulate your noise and just think about it, and have them communicate back to you. It's really efficient. You think about it, if your team is communicating back to you because you've articulated what are the things that are your noise, and they do a reasonably good job of communicating back to you versus you having to go hunt them down, it's very efficient and it's very productive. No surprises. Gosh, when I used to manage a lot of folks, I said, you know, never fear coming to me with a question or a comment, but God help you if there's this big surprise that I should have known about and I heard from someone else. So, you know, teach them to no surprises. Part of coaching is to also understand and help them with their noise too, and make it part of great two-way communication. So I'm going to quickly, because we've only got 5 minutes left. Great coaches have high expectations and believe in their team. They believe that change is possible. They work hard to connect with everybody, even if it's hard. Karen, to your point, a lot of the teams are dispersed, so that makes it harder. They help each person learn and grow on an ongoing basis. They listen deeply. And remember, the best way to listen deeply is be a great active listener and just ask good questions. Ask questions is a much better way. They ask more than they tell, 4-to-1 ratio. If you flip the ratio and it's 1-to-4, you're teaching, not coaching. They choose encouragement much more than criticism. They're prepared and expect the same from their team. They customize coaching for each member of the team, and they start with setting small, visible goals. As people achieve them, they recognize them, and they start to get into their head that they can succeed. So if anything, and I sent this deck to all you folks, even if you pin these 10, but look through all 10 of those and say, you know, which of these 10 do I do well? Which of these could I use some work on? great coaches don't do: talk more than listen, suggesting solutions before the employee has a chance to do so, interrupting, thinking about what they want to say next instead of focusing on what the other person is saying. That's a disaster. That's the anti-active listening. Use body language that signals impatience or distractions. Be very careful with your body language. I've actually worked with folks and been in group meetings where, someone might say something and the person actually shakes their head no before the person's even done. And that's just a sign of disrespect. Saying what they should have done differently in the same situation. Give up on people without really trying to help them improve. There's the gets it, wants it, does it. Just throw it through that filter again. Then, meeting on June 12th. And hopefully this is all on your calendars. On the deck I sent out earlier today, it said June 8th. So I got that wrong. I fixed it on this one. But I hope everybody either has the book and maybe has polished it off, Leadership and the 1 Minute Manager. What I really would love everybody to do is feel a certain sense of obligation to really speak up. This is going to be, I'm not going to be sending out a 25-page, slide deck of PowerPoints. It's going to be pretty simple, and it's going to be maybe a couple of concepts from Leadership and the 1 Minute Manager, but I'm going to ask everybody to be thinking about what are the 1, 2, 3 things you took away from the book that really resonated with you, and what are some things that you want to implement into your everyday leadership. So I probably won't go as far as to ask Brian for the name. I've got all your names, and then I'm not out to embarrass anybody, so I'm not going to do a roll call and ask everybody to come up with what they thought of the book. But if everybody would please read the book, take a few notes, and think about answering those 2 questions. And then I'd like to end that session with, we've now done 3 webinars. We did one on leadership. We did, including some self-improvement. We did one on feedback. Now we've done one on coaching and managing performance. I'd love it if everybody could have at least one, if not more, things that you've taken away from these sessions that you've either already put into your repertoire as a coach and a leader, or know that you want to, and things that are working. So just come up with a story or 2. Please, everybody think about that. Self-improvement commitments, Brian, I just need to reconcile with you and sync up with you as to whether that's going to be something that you do as an add-on with or without my help, but ask everybody based on the sessions that we've gone through, whether they're going to come up with some self-improvement commitments that they could put in writing to you.
With Crystal tomorrow.
Good. So if anything, if that's a go, then we'll kind of frame that up at the very end of the June 12th meeting. And then we could have either an add-on, at the end of June, or you guys can do that without my help. So with that, boy, the hour goes by fast. And I'm actually in Salt Lake City with STG. Brian, I'll see you next week. And if anybody is in the office next week, I'm there all day, Tuesday and Wednesday. And if you happen to be walking through, I would love it if you'd introduce myself to me. I'd love to see you face to face. And obviously, if you're out in the field, then that's not going to happen.
I'll make sure that I stop by.
Yeah, I'll bring you over to the Depth Center on Wednesday.
Yeah, that'd be terrific.
I'll be here, so.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Great, thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, bye.